The wind whistled through my room windows with the smell of wet earth or the roll of dry leaves. It was a grey day, nothing new in my life. The melancholy that pervaded me today was different. I was writing of the less trying to write, but my mind and pen could come to an agreement. I feel a pinch of frustration. Since they proposed to give a lecture at the Women's University of London, I have now stopped diving into various books on the shelves of libraries to give an answer to my questions. Where are not important writings in history? What is that missing for women to write? Moving back to the past, to the women who had preceded me, brilliant women who could never express their talent, women who did not have access to education, economic independence, a room of their own, where they could think and create without interruption. Suddenly an idea came into my mind, the sunray that deserved this great day. Money. We needed money. However materialistic this idea sounds, and economic freedom allows women to have their own space, a room of their own. I don't mean just a physical space. I would like to see understand as all that allows a woman to create in privacy, away from the common room that commands her to continuous disruption. With this in mind, I feel that I had found the key to women finding their voice, their creative freedom. And with this idea, I set out to write a room of my own, a journey towards independence, freedom, and the search of one's own identity. My pen was sliding off the paper hundreds of questions arise as ideas do. Assumption, thoughts. If we were in a world where figures like Shakespeare or some great writer of the past would have to be women, had they had the same freedom to create? Imagine a hypothetical case where Shakespeare would have the sister named Judith, who had the same ingenuity and ambition of his brother. The difference here is that otherwise she would not have the possibility of going to school. Looking for a future shows in theater with the intention that they let her act. The director of this will only laugh in her face, and few months later, Judith will hang herself from the tree when pregnant by the director. It is more than necessary to emphasize the inequality of which we women have lived out the part of the opposite sex. One that our story has been dedicated of hiding us, representing us, and subjugating us, to obtain a satisfaction that self-realization. I immersed myself in history, exploring the lives of women who had found against adversity, women who had defined social conviction to make their mark on the world. Jane Austen, the Bronte sisters, George Eliot, each had to fight against the wind and the tide to find their voice, to be recognized as a writer. But not only history shows inequality. In the present that situation was not much better. Women continue to struggle for their economic independence, their right to education, the recognition of their talents. Society still expects us to devote ourselves to motherhood, home life, domestic life, while men have the free path to glory and success. However, I was not willing to accept this fate. I was not willing to give up my dream of writing, of expressing my thoughts through words. I like to think that its work will serve as a reference of those who in the future will have 5 pounds of year and a room of their own to create. In a room of my own, I explored the road of inequality, the social structure that preserves women from accessing education, money, freedom. I looked at how the lack of economic independence and social pressure in motherhood and the home had limited women's ability to engage in literary creation. Throughout the essay of the time I spent researching the information between the pages of bookshelf, I was able to explore the roads of inequality, the structure and social prejudice, from limited women access to education and money to freedom, as the lack of economic independence and pressure to devote themselves to motherhood and home are key factors limiting women to ability to engage in artistic creation. Education is a key factor of the ECA because it's not only the prohibition and the taboo that there is when woman decides to take a different faith from the home core, and also the social punishment involve all twos of shoes to access an education. The other day when I was at the university where I'm going to give a lecture, I went into the responsible. Did you know the financial contribution towards women's university are almost nil? If they do not know or they know as some, is because it is not something that involves them or affects them. This only refers to a thesis that women's economic freedom is directly related ability to choose own path without being dependent on anyone and without being interrupted in the common room. My intention with this essay is to break with the prejudices and paradigms that based of women to literature and that the throughout history have kept her inferiority. My intention with this essay is to break with the prejudices and paradigms that based of women to literature and that the throughout history have kept her inferiority. Who keeps them away from a world by locking themselves in a house with 9 children without a room of their own to create. This is called for women to claim their right to creative freedom, the possibility of following their dreams, not to be limited of even with the thousand barriers of the limit us. It would have a possibility of £500 per of year and created your own room. A room of one's own is easy describing the relationship between woman, literature, and the novel, published in September 1929 by Virginia Woolf based on the 2 lectures she had given to Women's College in London. Woolf was born in January 1882 in London, United Kingdom. She came from a large of quiet, wealthy family. Virginia, unlike the siblings, did not have opportunity to go to school, although, thanks to her father, who was novelist and historian, she maintained to be educated at home. Unfortunately, her mother died when she was 13 years old, which led her to severe depression that would only be the first and severe that would occur in her life. Her sister Stella took over reins of the household that Virginia arranged, although 2 years later she left home to marry a son after dying, skinny again. Misfortune continued to haunt her of the age of 23 when she was hospitalized due to a nervous breakdown resulting from the death of her father. This created depression accompanied of her for the rest of her life. Virginia studied at the University of Cambridge and London, where she met the man who would be her husband of the companion of the rest of her life, Leonard Woolf, with whom she also founded the published house. Thanks to the knowledge and research that Virginia had, she managed to write several novels and essays that made her famous writing during the 20th century, and an important feminist figure. Among these books, we can highlight The Lighthouse, inspired by experience in one village where vacations as a child, Between Acts, which was the novel had published before the diet. The last one, if well mentioned, will be A Room of One's Own, I mentioned at the beginning a woman one's own. It is easy that studies the relationship between women, literature, and the novel. The essay was published in 1929 in the middle of the Great Depression. Well, was a time of economic crisis in the world that will greatly influenced the book trade that for the time Beijing was left aside because for people I was more relevant to think about what it that literature so this went into the background. A few decades later, thanks to feminist movement, this book could be untertale from the passenger of time that became an important literary piece to understand the situation of women during the 20s and in general throughout history. The book is told as if they were a story, as we were following the whole investigative and creative process of Virginia to write it. We wishing with two questions to develop the whole context of the book. That continues of necessary to women to create novels? Were women poor? It is impossible to give a single answer to these questions because they cover wide time to historical facts to wrestle in these questions. If you think for an answer to the first question, you can probably research several conclusions, perhaps more visibly of support of those more to write. If we return of the context of the book and the same answer of this one will be the answer to Rome on one's own. If you ask me, I consider that the fact the woman has been able to afford the room of one must also have enjoyed severe privileges that allowed her. Something as a basic education, economic freedom, a stable job, if the time of the room it only makes a reference to physical space that often tends to at least unimaginable privilege for the time. This space is also reference to the mental space that free to create. If we put together these ideas, we can conclude what a woman needs to be able to create in this economic freedom. Here we talk about the woman can have the fixed income that they know to support their own life without being dependent of anyone. And creative freedom, the no problem is that from this conclusion we get more questions. Here I would like to stop and ask you another question. Why are there not relevant women fighters in history? To answer this, I would like to talk about the other hypothetical case that Virginia raises in the book. Judith, Shakespeare's sister. If we go to back the story, we see that being a woman, she had the same destiny as everyone else. To end up married to a man to whom she was continued from the candle, and she barely knows in the case that woman had been like you did, and had tried to find a future that only within art and creation. She would have been denied any possibility of going so, or she did her own world to have been much different than Judith's. If we go down the path of the Shakespeare sister did, she would have been denied any possibility of going so, or she did her own the would not have been much different than Judith's. If we go down the path that most of the women of the time took, the chance of the having been able creative were practically nil because society but high pressure of the women to devote themselves to motherhood and home care, taking the education and point a job and allocated and their time to this. I pause to ask you again. Why do we see women's writings only in novels? Women began to play a more active role in literature in the mid-19th century. Although they did play a role in literature, it was almost not existent and was not given any recognition. But within the other literary genres, it was impossible to see a woman as an author. In a room of one's own, the narrator explains that is a result of the lack of time woman had. As mentioned in before, a bearing woman has to play a role of motherhood and home care too. She had to take care of about 12 others' lives to see a woman wanted to create, to write novels, and were the best option. Science do not require a much time of do, for example, fiction, historical, or some other books. Another factor to influence with this fact that novels start to be popular. Simultaneously, with the participation of women in literature. If we put together the questions and the answers that have been recited on the last paragraphs, we come to several conclusions. Probably it varies according to how asked although if we take that the book explained we return to the conclusion that is the first mentioned. Need for a room of their own to create a truth. It was something I had mentioned previously. I consider it important to understand the reason for this conclusion. I will not think again in this. Instead, I would like to talk about the economic and how it is key to the world thesis that is developed in the book. Of the book of relationship between the economic and the power to create is the reason the difference is we are no longer talking exclusively about the how it relates to women. No, we are talking about how the situation is for men. Let's go back to the hypothetical cases. Imagine you are a wealthy man in the mid 17th centuries. Thanks to the fortune of your family, manage the service of quality education. If you want to develop yourself completely to creation, without being hooded or questioned, with choosing the fact. Now let's change the context of the story. You are the younger man who comes from a wealthy family, but a middle class one. You could not afford to pay for an university, so you had to dedicate yourself of the same profession as your father. In this case, you wanted to dedicate yourself to creation. You will have several independence. Probably you will not be taken seriously and you will have some difficulty to publish it. This case, compared with Judith's story, reflect the concept and importance of economic freedom. Taking into account only the last two, we see the importance of having the stable economic to be able to write it move the situation of women only to conclude the same or have said throughout the analysis. A woman needs economic freedom to able to have money. She needs work opportunities, education, £500 a year to have economic freedom. She needs society not house her, punish her deciding to do something different to motherhood and housework until woman is able have the she will not have possibility to write, to create in life with dignity.